In Brazil, an Amazon plane crash leaves 14 dead.
Authorities say the aircraft apparently started its descent too late. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie, Alagao-Flores. This is Matana Agila International. Now for the headlines. Philippines and the United States to engage in a multitude of military activities by 2024. Malaysia to help Philippines promote retail tourism. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel calls for a new global order. A residential fire in South Africa leaves over 1,000 homeless. And Filipino Olympian EJ Obiena wins silver in Diamond League final ahead of the Asian Games. The pilot launch of the new Matatag K-10 curriculum is set to take place on the 25th of September, involving 35 schools spread throughout the country. The Department of Education has revealed that 5 of these schools will be located in the National Capital Region. Another 5 will be in the Cordillera Administrative Region, while the remaining schools are in the Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Visayas, Soc-Sargen, and Caraga. The rollout of the K-10 curriculum will commence at Kinder, grades 1, 4, and 7 for all schools in the academic year 2024-2025. Subsequently, grades 2, 5, and 8 will implement the new curriculum by 2025-2026, followed by grades 3, 6, and 9 in 2026 to 2027, and finally with grade 10 adopting the curriculum in school year 2027-2028.
Over 10,000 individuals have turned up to participate in the 2023 bar examination, which started this Sunday. The bar exams are set to run from the 20th to the 24th of September. Among the participating universities, San Beda University in Manila boasts the highest number of examinees, totaling 1,614, closely followed by UP Diliman with 1,066 candidates. The Supreme Court shares that about 5,800 individuals are attempting the bar exam for the first time, while nearly 5,000 are repeaters. Results are expected to be released in early December, to be followed by the simultaneous oath-taking and signing of the roll of attorneys.
Another big-time pump price hike is set to take effect tomorrow. According to oil firms' advisories, motorists will have to pay 2 pesos and 50 centavos more for diesel per liter. Meanwhile, kerosene and gasoline prices per liter will go up by 2 pesos. This marks the 11th consecutive week of fuel price hikes. According to the Department of Energy, the price increase is in line with the continued oil production cuts by Russia and Saudi Arabia.
A LinkedIn survey says that 97% of Filipinos are hopeful that artificial intelligence will improve their careers. It adds that 95% of the respondents are confident of using the technology at work. LinkedIn Philippines head Atul Hariksanka said that generative AI is gaining more prominence in the workplace. LinkedIn reports that 55% of the local workers use AI to generate content for their jobs. Meanwhile, 47% of them have tried ChatGPT and other AI tools.
The Philippine National Police, or PNP, has reported a significant decrease in the crime rate for this year compared to the same period last year. Vin Pascua tells us more.
Chief of Police for the PNP, General Benjamin Acorda, shares that between the 1st of January and 15th of September 2023, there have been about 12,000 fewer reported incidents. This marks a notable decrease of almost 8% in the overall crime rate. Acorda also emphasizes the noteworthy progress in the fight against illegal drugs. He highlights that through nearly 35,000 operations carried out Since the beginning of the year, law enforcement successfully confiscated illegal drugs valued at over 7.2 billion pesos. In the light of these achievements, the PNP has garnered a commendable 85% trust and approval rating, underscoring the agency's dedication to upholding integrity and transparency in their recent endeavors. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines Western Command, or WESCOM, says it is monitoring the heightened presence of Chinese maritime militia vessels in Rosal Reef. According to WESCOM Commander Vice Admiral Alberto Carlos, about 40 Chinese fishing vessels were spotted in Rosal Reef as of September 15, 2023. Carlos is wary that the latest figure is higher compared to the 33 vessels spotted last August, and an additional 24 were tracked on September 7. WESCOM further disclosed there were also Chinese vessels observed swarming in Escoda Shoal and Bagagatan Bank. The regiment, however, reassures that the Philippine Navy, as well as the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, are there to monitor the said areas. Last July, Vice Admiral Carlos previously reported a suspected coral harvesting in Rosal Reef. This was confirmed through an underwater survey conducted by the Philippine Navy's divers.
Manila and Washington have planned over 500 bilateral military engagements to bolster their cooperation in 2024. Raymark Sonaba reports.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, said that the Philippines and the United States will collaborate on a multitude of exercises and high-level exchanges between allied nations. These also includes areas such as security cooperation, maritime security, information sharing, and capacity and capability development. These were discussed during the annual meeting between AFP and the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, which was concluded last Thursday at Camp Aguinaldo. Meanwhile, AFP Chief Romeo Bronner Jr. reaffirms that the said planned activities signify the two countries' commitment to further deepen their cooperation. This ensures that both nations' militaries are equipped and well prepared to respond to evolving security challenges. During the annual assembly, Bronner and U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Head Admiral John Aquilino have agreed to expedite the completion of the project for the 9 existing Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreements, or EDCA sites in the Philippines. Aquilino reported that they have added 63 more EDCA projects ahead of the previous 32. Raymark Sonaba reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Malaysian retail expert Valorum Group is actively exploring opportunities to expand its presence in the Philippines, planning on establishing duty-free retail outlets at airports to promote retail tourism. This commitment came during a meeting between the group's representatives and President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Singapore on Saturday. The Valorum Group has expressed a strong desire to rapidly expand its operations within the Philippines over the next 5 years, eager to introduce some of their brands that are not currently available in the country. President Marcos recognizes the pivotal role of the retail industry in the Philippine economy. He believes that Valorum Group's expansion efforts could also contribute significantly to boost the nation's tourism sector.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. made his surprise visit to Singapore's Lucky Plaza to meet the Filipino diaspora in the country. The president sported a casual white polo shirt and gray pants on his way to the mall. Many Filipino migrant workers were present as some took their opportunity to take selfies with the president. According to the Presidential Communications Office, the overseas Filipino workers in Singapore could not contain their excitement as well as their eagerness to witness the chief executive visit.
Coming up, Kim Jong-un returns to North Korea from Russia with high hopes. The G77 plus China summit wraps up with surprising conclusions. And U.S. President Joe Biden makes a controversial appointment. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
binaril na yung claim nila sa 9-9.
Yung kanang kamay, pinakamayan ang Pilipinas, pero yung kalimang kamay, sinasaksak naman tayo.
Hindi tayo naghahanap ng basagulo, pero nagpo-protesta kami. Ngayon, tayo iniipit tapos sinasabi nila, nangako tayo.
Baka magulat na lang tayo, baka may ilabas po ang China na meron silang resibo pala.
Sama-sama nating harapin ang mga issue at problema ng bayan. Dito lang sa ASPN, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. sa Net 25.
Expose, viral at exclusive. Mga reklamo at problema na napapanood at na-post sa social media. Ngayon, aaksyonan na rin ng Responde. Kaya kung meron po kayong nais na isumbong, mag-text sa 0915-415-1035 o mag-email sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25TV. Walang problema na hindi mabibigyan po ng solusyon. Basta't may agad na Responde. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Dito lamang sa Net25.
Welcome back to Matanang Agila International. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is set to visit Russia. This is after his weekend meeting with White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in the latest effort to mend relations between the superpowers. According to Chinese Foreign Ministry, Wang Yi will begin his 4-day visit to Russia on September 18 for security talks. This is under the invitation of Moscow Security Council Chief Nikolai Patrushev. Meanwhile, the Russian foreign minister said that the Chinese foreign minister is also scheduled to meet his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. The Russian foreign ministry adds that the meeting is set to be focused on detailed exchanges on issues related to Ukraine and stability and security in the Asia-Pacific region. Moscow notes that the two top officials aim to strengthen collaboration in the international setting.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has waved goodbye to Russia following a 6-day visit. His trip included a face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Kim Jong-un boarded his armored train Sunday for the journey back to Pyongyang. The Russian visit fanned Western fears that North Korea could provide Moscow with weapons for its war with Ukraine. Before departing from Vladivostok near the North Korean border, Kim received a gift of 5 explosive drones, a reconnaissance drone, and a bulletproof vest. Government officials from the two countries have agreed to meet again in November, this time in Pyongyang. Russia and North Korea are historic allies. Both are under a raft of global sanctions, Moscow for its invasion of Ukraine and Pyongyang for its nuclear weapons test.
Let's now head over to Papua New Guinea, where our Net25 team joins in the country's Independence Day celebrations. Our very own Eko Hortaleza Quinola has the story.
Today is the 48th Independence Day of Papua New Guinea. Growing up here gives me the opportunity to call it my second home. I can speak and understand the language, but more importantly, I have learned the culture and I am able to join the people here today in celebrating the nation's independence from Australia. The country is dolled up with red, black, and yellow colors. These signify the country's birth as an independent nation. Traditional regalia and cultural shows representing each district and diverse people fill the atmosphere with energy and happiness. The 4-day celebration here in the National Capital District manifests with fabulous activities from various school programs to a unity walk to a national independence parade.
I'm proud today to be a Papua New Guinea. Let's celebrate this 48 years of our country's journey. Happy independence, Papua New Guinea.
Included are a flag-lowering ceremony and amazing shows representing 1,000 tribes.
I haven't been to the Murray Barracks before and it looks fantastic. Happy independence, PNG.
Plus, the much-awaited fireworks display at the APEC House.
The country will always get back on track. If it's not on track, and it's just time, effort, and energy, and we unite as one, we will get there.
Public servants join in the celebration.
I want to pass my happy independence anniversary to my people of Kendal and Gloucester Open, and all the best in your celebrations. Also, my happy celebrations to West New Britain Province.
Happy 40th anniversary of independence sa Papua New Guinea. Hiling ko lang sana tuloy-tuloy na pagtulong natin sa bansang to para maging mas payapa, mas progresibo.
Papua New Guinea today shouts, "One city, one people, one future." Thousands of hands wave flags of unity and solidarity, commemorating hard-fought freedom and looking ahead to achieving genuine national progress.
Thank you very much. God bless every one of you. Happy 48th anniversary.
Eko Hortaleza Quinola, born and raised here in Papua New Guinea, mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Ukraine claims that its forces have seized a town south of the frontline city of Bakhmut. An important show as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to visit the U.S. next week to garner support.
Дякую, воїни. І усім, хто зараз на передовій, кожній бригаді, від Куп'янська до лівобережжя Херсонщини, від Бахмутського напрямку до кожної української позиції на нулі, на півдні нашої держави. Я дякую вам, хлопці, за міцність.
President Zelensky has commended the soldiers fighting on the front lines, particularly noting those involved in capturing the town of Klishchivka. This recent event follows Ukraine's claim of taking over the village of Andrivka near the same area. Russia, however, is denying these claims that its forces have been pushed out of the village.
Russia has successfully repelled multiple Ukrainian drone attacks aimed at Moscow and Crimea over the weekend. Meanwhile, Ukraine's counteroffensive still fails to push through fortified Russian defense lines. RT's Murad Gastiev tells us more.
It is minutes before sunrise. We drive as far as cars can safely take us. We have joined a highly specialized team, scouts and drone operators of the Viking Special Operations Unit.
We are in the direction of Kordyumovsky. We will be engaged in reconnaissance, search operations, and the identification of prospective enemy points while we collect information on the front.
This is just south of Bakhmut. A Ukrainian offensive is underway. The early dawn calm proves deceptive. As you can hear, the combat is especially close quarters, so firefights, 30, 40, 50 meters, Russian and Ukrainian troops facing each other. Over the past 24 hours, Russia has beaten or forced Ukrainian troops out of several positions in Andriivka, Klishchivka, which the Ukrainians took with huge casualties and a mass expenditure of ammunition. It is a long trek to the front lines. We do not pass unnoticed. Bullets whistle and impact meters away.
The enemy gives the direction and they just take the shots. That's all. They just make you duck. That's what they do during assaults.
Drones are everywhere, Russian and Ukrainian. At all times, everything is visible. No one and nothing can hide for long.
It's a small multi-rotor strike UAV. In this configuration, if empty, it can fly 10 to 12 kilometers as long as the radio is accessible. If we load, for instance, 4 kilograms, the range is reduced to 2 to 3 kilometers.
As they scout ahead, filming destroyed American-made M113 APCs from above, so below our team heads further.
Here is the Klishevka-Andreevka direction. It's that way. Clusters fly in there all the time.
That was the sound of cluster munition exploding, detonating in Kurdyumovka, which is under assault currently. We're hearing cluster munitions impact every 5 or so minutes at this point. It wouldn't be long before we had a much closer encounter with American-supplied cluster munitions. Ukrainians most likely were targeting us, trying to hit where we would be. A drone hovered and watched.
Стоять, вон птица. Видишь ее? А? Иди сюда. Вон, видишь? Вон висит. Прямо вон. Я не вижу. Не видно, да, отсюда? Вон она, видишь? Нет. Иди сюда. Ну вот же она прямо перед тобой, блин. Вон небо. Не понял, как ты видишь? А, о! Увидел? Это противник у нас спасет. Вон она. О, понесла. Вон она. Ага. Это противник контролит нас. Маршрут меняем.
We're changing our route. We're going to the target, but from a different direction. That way, the enemy will fire in vain. We need to confuse the enemy so we don't get
Они будут отработать в молоко. Кассета. Где мы были? Это по нам.
All of this we filmed in just several hours. It conveys the ferocity of the battle raging around Bakhmut, that it will be remembered and felt for decades yet.
Все, быстро, быстро пошли. Здорово. Давай, грузи. Все, есть что летает. Да, я знаю. Дороги.
Morad Gazdiev, RT from Donetsk region.
Sporadic protests in Iran on the weekend marked the first anniversary of the death of Mahsa Amini, the woman who died in police custody after being arrested for not wearing a headscarf. But elsewhere in the world, thousands marched to remember her death. Rani Bayuga has more details.
Around the world, rallies like this one in Paris marked the death anniversary of Mahsa Amini. The 22-year-old's death sparked months of demonstration in Iran that resulted in the deaths of more than 550 protesters. Authorities arrested another 22,000 people. 7 men have been executed for their roles in the protests. In a run-up to the anniversary of Amini's death, Iranian authorities renewed their crackdown. At one point, they arrested her father, warning him not to hold a memorial service at her gravesite. Security forces are preventing him from visiting his daughter's grave. Worldwide, major demonstrations marked the anniversary with protests held in the US, Canada, France, and other countries. But in Iran, while the issue of hijab remains a sore spot, it appears to have taken a backseat to the economic woes Iranians face. One Iranian woman said hijab is a completely secondary and personal issue. Ronnie Bayuga for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The European Union has come up with an emergency plan to help Italy deal with migrant arrivals. This comes after a record number of people landed on the Italian island of Lampedusa last week. Anna Cui has the report.
In the past 7 days, about 8,500 asylum seekers traveling in about 200 boats arrived in Italy's Lampedusa. That's more than the island's entire local population. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says irregular immigration is a European challenge that needs a European solution.
We have an obligation as part of the international community. We have fulfilled it in the past and we will do so today and in the future. But we will decide who comes to the European Union and under what circumstances, and not the smugglers and traffickers.
Von der Leyen says her aid plan for Italy includes increased support for the European Agency for Asylum and the Border Control Agency. She adds the EU will also increase aid for transporting asylum seekers from Italy to other EU members. Anna Cui from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Cuba has called for a new global order as it hosted the G77 plus China summit last week. During the summit, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel underscored the right to develop an intensifying unjust international order.
Por todo el tiempo en que el norte acomodó al mundo a sus intereses para mal del resto.
Diaz-Canel also welcomes United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres along with top Communist Party official Li Xi as China's delegation. The Chinese top official noted that his country is committed to making the South-South cooperation a priority. This pertains to Beijing's dealings with its foreign affairs. G77 was established in 1964 by the Uniting Nations of the Global South. Currently, the bloc has 134 members, while Cuba took over the rotating presidency last January.
The UN envoy to Sudan has resigned, issuing a stark warning to the UN Security Council that the ongoing conflict between rival military factions in Sudan could escalate into a full-blown civil war.
I serve as a United Nations Secretary General Special Representative for Sudan for more than 2.5 years. I'm grateful to the Secretary General for that opportunity and for his confidence in me. But I've asked him to relieve me of this duty. This will therefore be my last briefing in this function. I serve as a United Nations Secretary General Special Representative for Sudan for more than 2.5 years. I'm grateful to the Secretary General for that opportunity and for his confidence in me. But I've asked him to relieve me of this duty. This will therefore be my last briefing in this function.
This resignation comes after Sudan had declared UN Ambassador to Sudan, Volker Perthes, unwelcome in the country over 3 months ago. In his final address to the Security Council, Perthes criticized both the military forces involved in the conflict for their alleged human rights abuses. The situation on the ground remains dire, with over 5 million people displaced due to the ongoing clashes between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces.
The iconic Greater Nile Petroleum Oil Company tower was engulfed in flames after the heavy fight between the army and rival forces. The United Nations stated that over 1 million people have been forced to flee in Sudan as airstrikes and ground battles continued since the war broke out in April. This war was triggered by a power conflict between the leaders of the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. The army has concluded the threat and tension of the activities made by the redeployed members of the RSF around the country. The Sudan War Monitor has reported the continuous attack of RSF in areas supervised by the army and at the Justice Ministry office block, in which they have also set fire on several government buildings. Health authorities announced that all main hospitals in Sudan's capital, including the Darfur region, were out of service. They also added that the fire in Khartoum landmark has no reports of injuries or deaths. Meanwhile, a group of pro-democracy lawyers indicated this war had killed 7,500 people and displaced more than 5 million in Khartoum. The landmark office tower caused by fire is still unclear as its cone-like structure is made of glass facade.
United States President Joe Biden has tapped controversial former Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker to be in charge of Ukraine's economic recovery. RT's Rachel Blevins has the details on the White House's latest appointment.
Let's build a country of new opportunities, where everybody is equal before the law and where the rules of the game are honest and transparent, the same for everyone.
But that's not what actually happened, as when it comes to U.S. aid alone, Zelensky and his team have been accused of stealing at least $400 million worth in a single year. Even the New York Times has called corruption in Kiev an existential threat, admitting in a recent article that Ukraine remains one of the most corrupt countries in Europe, with everyone from arms dealers to suppliers of soldiers' food taking advantage of the conflict and using it to make large profits. That's as every time one of Kiev's officials changes, the conversation of corruption comes into play. Yet Washington saw no reason for any audit or decrease in funding for Kiev, as Congress approved over $100 billion in a single year. As for where Penny Pritzker fits in, Secretary of State Antony Blinken claimed that her extensive private sector experience made her uniquely qualified for her new role.
The Speaker of Poland's upper house of parliament has called on the government to reveal what it knew about a cash for visa scandal. Thomas Grodzki raised this issue during his privileged speech at an event. The government has released new details, but media reports say migrants paid up to $5,000 each to speed up the process on their visa or their work visa applications. The ministry, which is facing an audit in relation to the scandal, said it would terminate all contracts for outsourcing companies handling visa applications since 2011. The country's deputy foreign minister, Piotr Wawrzyk, was relieved of his position last week following these findings. His dismissal came the same day that Poland's Anti-Corruption Bureau carried out a search of the foreign ministry. The director of its legal service has also been fired. Opposition MPs said up to 250,000 visas for people from Asia and Africa were issued irregularly by outsourcing companies. The Polish government has since downplayed the gravity of the situation. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki had denied the existence of the widespread issue.
Five U.S. detainees have flown out of Iran in a swap for 5 Iranians held in the United States under a deal brokered by Qatar between the two rival countries that also sees the U.S. unfreeze $6 billion worth of assets for Tehran.
ما امیدوار هستیم که امروز شاهد در اختیار قرار گرفتن کامل دارایی‌های جمهوری اسلامی ایران.
A Qatari took off from Tehran carrying 5 of the prisoners shortly after the U.S. and Iran received confirmation that the funds had been transferred to accounts in Doha. Iran's press TV said 2 of the 5 Iranians to be released in the exchange had landed in Doha, though Iranian officials had said 3 of those to be freed by the U.S. were not returning to Iran. The funds release triggered an exchange sequence agreed after months of talks between the United States and Iran, who are at odds over Iran's nuclear ambitions and several other issues. The 5 Americans with dual nationality are due to fly to Doha and then on to the U.S. for a final debriefing and medical checkups. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani said 2 of the Iranians being released would return to Iran, while 2 would stay in the U.S. at their request, while one detainee chose to stay with his family in a third country.
زندانی ایرانی امروز آزاد خواهند شد و به طور متقابل هم 5 شهروند در واقع زندانی که در جمهوری اسلامی ایران بودند در اختیار بر اساس درخواست خودشون در اختیار طرف آمریکایی قرار داده خواهند شد. بنابراین ما انتظار داریم که این دو موضوع امروز انشالله به طور
Up next, an Air Force jet crashes in Turin during an air show. Americans worried over the increasing poverty rate. And Berlin's Brandenburg Gate has been defaced by climate activists. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Problema parang ang hirap ng huminga, di ba? Minsan pakiramdam mo, hopeless na. Kaya dapat ihayag ang saloobin, himayin ang hinaing, alamin ang pwedeng gawin. Mag-reality check tayo.
Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos. Every Sunday, 9 p.m.
People have died in a plane crash in Brazil. Authorities say no one survived the crash. JC Yumel has the details.
The aircraft went down near a remote town in Amazon jungle, killing all 12 passengers and 2 crew members. The small turboprop plane had been flying a group of Brazilian sport fishermen into the northern town of Barcelos when it crashed during stormy weather. Heavy rain had been falling at that time, reducing visibility. Official says the plane apparently started its descent too late. It touched down about half down the runway and skid off the end of the landing strip. It came to rest in dense vegetation. A team of investigators is examining the wreckage. JC Yumul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Meanwhile, in Italy, a 5-year-old child is killed by burning debris that came from a crash involving an Italian Air Force jet during an aerobatics practice run near the city of Turin. The child's 9-year-old brother is also suffering severe burns from the debris that struck the car they were traveling in. Video footage captures the jet exploding moments after takeoff. The pilot managed to eject, deploying his parachute before the aircraft collided with the ground. He is currently undergoing treatment for burns at a local hospital. Initial reports suggest that the crash occurred after the jet collided with a flock of birds, leading to the tragic sequence of events.
More than 1,000 residents in South Africa are left homeless after a big fire in the outskirts of Johannesburg. RT's Nolovoyo Kunge has the details.
The city of Johannesburg's emergency services has responded to a fire incident call at a 3-story hijacked building here in Marshalltown, Johannesburg CBD. This building is not far from the first fire that took place 2 weeks ago that claimed more than 70 lives. We managed to speak to the Johannesburg city manager, and this is what they had to say.
We're starting to suspect that there might be some form of sabotage when you look at all these fires that came up in the last few weeks, and we see it as maybe a pushback in in order to play government's hand in order for us to provide formal housing. We are aware of the housing backlog within the city of Johannesburg and in Gauteng as a whole. But I mean, what we have now seen, I think it's a level of lawlessness. It's still early for us to say what was the ignition source or what led to it. Our safety teams are on site now and they're doing those assessments. Once we have a clear indication, we should be able to communicate and engage with you.
The last incident that took place 2 weeks ago saw many victims ending up in shelters around Johannesburg, and it seems like this will be the case for these residents as well, even though many of them say they do not want to end up in shelters, because ending up in a shelter means that those who are not from South Africa will get deported. We managed to speak to some local citizens who are trying to get back into their place of residence, and this is what one of them had to say.
We don't know if we'll be sleeping inside the building or not this evening. No one has communicated anything to us. Our belongings are still inside. Our identity documents, even my clothes are there. If they don't let us in, how will we survive with no clothes or necessities? There are babies here. If we can't go in, that means we'll be sleeping on the streets tonight.
At the moment, we understand that it is going to be another cold night for some Johannesburg citizens as they have nowhere else to go. Noluvuyo Kunge, RT, Johannesburg.
2 people have died in flooding along the western and eastern Cape coastlines of South Africa. Strong winds and high tides left homes badly damaged, Elise Danielle reports.
A South African local media reports a wave swept a 93-year-old woman off her feet as she watched her surf from a parking lot. There is also a report of the discovery of the body of a man along the shoreline. The waves washed away cars and damaged homes and businesses. Theater owner Vanessa Harris is one of the residents mopping up the damage.
It does happen often. You get the odd wave, rogue wave that comes in, but this was just one after the other, after the other. And as the waves were coming, there goes another window, and there goes another window, there goes, and it was just a flooding nightmare.
The storm affected several communities. Winds ripped roofs off of buildings. Shattered glass lay in the street from broken windows. It has been described as a perfect storm, which is the result of a combination of a strong low-pressure system, a spring tide, and strong winds. Elise Danielle for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In other news, amid inflation, the U.S. releases its latest report on income and poverty in America. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad reports.
According to a recent report by the Census Bureau, more Americans are living in poverty now than in recent years. The findings are based on 2022 data. The data shows the supplemental poverty measure, or SPM, in 2022 was 12.4%. In 2021, it was 7.8%. The 4.6 jump is the first increase in the overall SPM poverty rate since 2010. The SPM is a different metric from the official poverty rate, which stood at 11.5% in 2022. It accounts for factors such as annual income after taxes, government assistance program, tax credits, and work and medical expenses. It also factors in differences in housing expenses based on location. This results in higher poverty rates for Americans residing in parts of the country where it is more expensive to live. The Census Bureau says the sharp increase in the poverty rate can be attributed to the end of pandemic-era stimulus payments and tax credits. In contrast, as the poverty rate increased, the Census Bureau reported the real median household income in 2022 dropped compared to 2021. Real median household income fell by 2.3%. In 2021, families had a real median income of $76,330. In 2022, it was $74,580. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Toronto now, amid safety concerns in subways, the federal government has mandated wireless networks to make sure subway riders remain connected whenever on the city's public transit. Ashley Sackmar has the story.
After years of requests and frustration from the public, the Toronto Transit Commission, or TTC subway system, will finally have wireless cellular connection, providing all passengers with network coverage while riding the subway. Federal Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, François-Philippe Champagne, has announced that all wireless network carriers are mandated by the federal government to provide TTC passengers with some cellular connectivity on or before October 3rd, 2023. Full subway station coverage by June 2024 and full system coverage by 2026. This includes full voice, text, and data services throughout the TTC subway lines in all current and future stations and tunnels that will be built and made operational. If all four of Canada's major wireless carriers are unable to meet these conditions, the government will impose monetary penalties, suspension, or revoking that carrier's license. Reliable mobile connection in the subway system is not just a matter of convenience, but of public safety, especially in emergency situations, according to Minister Champagne. Currently, only 911 calls function in the TTC where there is signal, which does not include the tunnels. Most, if not all, passengers do not have voice and data access. This is a welcome announcement, especially in terms of safety, as there has been a spike in violence on board TTC subway stations in the last year alone. In Toronto, Ontario, Ashley Sackmar for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A group of German climate activists called the Last Generation sprayed orange paint onto Berlin's Brandenburg Gate to urge the German government to take more urgent action against climate change. The activists used fire extinguishers filled with paint to spray all 6 columns of the popular landmark in Germany's capital, which was built in Berlin more than 200 years ago. Berlin's Brandenburg Gate is a symbol of reunification after the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. The group posted a photo on social media showing its members spraying paint to urge the German government to take more urgent action against climate change, specifically to stop using fossil fuels by the year 2030 and take short-term measures. The group also urges the German government to impose a general speed limit of 100 kilometers per hour or 62 miles per hour on highways to cut emissions more quickly. Police detained 14 activist members of the Last Generation and cordoned off the area surrounding Brandenburg Gate. Speaking to local media, the mayor of Berlin, Kai Wegner, said in his words, "With these actions, this group is not only damaging the historic Brandenburg Gate, but also our free discourse about the important issues of our time and future." Coming right up, the United Auto Workers Union threatens to expand their strike if no agreement is met. Find out who the Philippine flag bearers are for this year's Asian Games. And Drew Barrymore halts her talk show due to severe backlash. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
The sky. Kaya lumilipad na naman tayo. Sino ba itong uupo ngayon sa ating iconic chairs?
Finally, nag-guess na rin ako dito. Just canceled everything for you.
Talaga? Ay, naku, nakakatuwa naman. Medyo kakaiba ang ating papasukin ngayong araw. The Goodwill Resort with the Goodwill Cast. Woo! tinur niya tayo sa kanyang bagong buhay.
Mundo.
Tamang-tama, pinag-uusapan sila ng lahat ngayon. Tingnan ka!
Ayan na.
Ayan na. Alam mo talaga siya, no? Yes! Tatlong buwan! Kinasal ka na! Yes! Ngayon natin malalaman ang totoo. So now, let's spill the coffee.
Spill the coffee.
Yes. And we're here at Net25. Ito ang tahanan ng Corina Interviews.
Game developers became furious over the Unity Engine announcement on its new fees. The firm notes starting January 1st next year, Unity will charge developers each time a game using the engine is downloaded. The charge will start when sales reach a threshold of $200,000 in revenue over 12 months and $200,000 in total installs. The fee depends on the license that the developer has with Unity. This, however, will be as high as $20 per install. Several developers pointed out loopholes with the charge spanning questions from fees each time a player reinstalls the game on new hardware as well as those with subscription services. Meanwhile, the Unity clarified that the majority of game developers will not be affected by the new fees. In an expose, Unity discussed the framework of its charges. Unity notes that it will not charge the developers on reinstalls and fraudulent installs and will not count web and streaming games and charity-related installs in the metrics of its runtime fees. The head of the United Auto Workers vows to ramp up strike action if the union's wage demands are not met. Sean Fain says pickets will go up at more plants if he does not see more money on the table soon. Thomas Eyelikeness tells us more.
The strike against the big three car makers in the United States has entered its fourth day. So far, the walkouts have been limited to one plant at each of the automakers. But as negotiations resumed on Sunday, union boss Sean Fain issued a warning.
If we don't get better offers and we don't get down and take care of the members' needs, then we're going to amp this thing up even more.
Fain blames the automakers for not beginning negotiations back in July when the union wanted to bargain. Regardless, he says, it's time for General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis to open their corporate wallets.
We're fed up with falling behind. It's been decades of falling behind, and especially this past decade, in the most wealthiest times in the history of these companies.
The latest offer is a 21% pay hike, but is that good enough?
It's definitely a no-go, and we've made that very clear to the companies.
The union wants a 40% pay increase to match the average pay increases of the CEOs at the three companies. Nearly 13,000 workers are on the picket lines right now, but with no end in sight, car makers face the possibility of seeing more assembly lines like these shifted into park and production halted. Thomas Eyelikeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Apple switches to USB-C from Lightning after 11 years. This is to comply with the European Union's initiatives on eradicating e-waste and implementing charger compatibility rules. The said order requires USB Type-C chargers for all devices by late 2024. The measurement was passed into law after a huge 602-13 vote in the European Parliament in 2022. Meanwhile, the company revealed that this change at the eagerly awaited Wanderlust event on September 13, where the new iPhone 15 models stole the show. Consumers are expected to practically benefit from these changes. USB-C is known as a universal connector for charging and data transfer on most modern gadgets.
That display. It's the first time we're doing that.
In sports news, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz Jr. had an upset over Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Meanwhile, find out as well who the Philippines flag bearers are for the 2023 Asian Games. Elijah Villanueva has the score.
Ferrari's Carlos Sainz Jr. drove a perfect race to win a thrilling Singapore Grand Prix on Sunday that ended Max Verstappen and Red Bull's winning run. Sainz led from start to finish after a charging George Russell crashed his Mercedes from third place on the final lap. Lando Norris was second in a McLaren, with Lewis Hamilton crossing the line in third. Championship leader Max Verstappen was fifth, as Red Bull failed to win a race for the first time this season. With the feat, Carlos Sainz picked up his second Formula One career win as he led the 62-lap Singapore GP from start to finish. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, only finished P5 to end his record-breaking 10-win streak, the longest so far in the tournament's history. Filipino pole vaulter EJ Obiena has captured a silver medal in the Wanda Diamond League finals. This was after he leapt a 5.82 meters record at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. Armand Duplantis of Sweden won the gold medal, who reset his own record with a mark of 6.23 meters. The second-place finish is the latest in a string of superb results for Obiena, who has made the podium in 15 of his last 16 competitions. Meanwhile, Obiena will be joined by Marjeline Didal to be the Philippines' flag bearers for the opening ceremonies of the 2023 Asian Games in China. Didal won skateboarding gold in the 2018 ASEAN in Indonesia, as Obiena will be coming in as the favorite to top the podium in the men's pole vault. The opening ceremonies will be held on the 23rd of September in the Hangzhou Sports Park Stadium, where the Philippines will send 395 athletes who will compete in 37 sports in the Asian Games. Elijah Villanueva reporting for Sports in Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
After receiving backlash, U.S. actress Drew Barrymore has postponed the premiere of her U.S. talk show until the Hollywood strikes are over. Catherine Ortula has the scoop.
I believe there's nothing I can do or say in this moment to make it okay. I wanted to own a decision so that it wasn't a PR protected situation, and I would just take full responsibility for my actions.
Drew Barrymore issued an emotional on-camera apology for planning to return to screens on Monday for her CBS talk show, The Drew Barrymore Show. Filming for the fourth season of the talk show took place earlier this week amid the ongoing Writers Guild of America, or WGA, strike. Barrymore initially refused to stop production and claimed the show complied with strike rules. But this sparked a massive backlash, with the 48-year-old actress accused of not standing in solidarity with the cause. The tearful video apology has been deleted, and the ET actress opted to release an official statement instead on Instagram on Sunday.
I know there's just nothing I can do that will make this okay for those it is not okay with. I fully accept that. I fully understand that. There are so many reasons why this is so complex. And I just want everyone to know my intentions have never been in a place to upset or hurt anyone. It's not who I am.
In her statement, Barrymore said she has listened to everyone and she is making the decision to pause the show's premiere until the strike is over.
I've been through so many ups and downs in my life, and this is one of them. I deeply apologize to writers. I deeply apologize to unions. I deeply apologize.
In her words, the actress said, "I have no words to express my deepest apologies to anyone I have hurt. And, of course, to our incredible team who works on the show and has made it what it is today." Catherine Ortula for Mata ng Agila International.
Trusted, connected, on point.
But I guess we just have to respect differing opinions.
And it's great that she apologized.
Exactly. To start the week, here's a quote from American business mogul and philanthropist John D. Rockefeller. Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great.
I think it's all just about not being so complacent with things. If you know that you can go for greater, then don't sell yourself short.
Exactly. Always aim for improvements.
There we go. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Lianes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point. Watching Mata ng Agila International. To receive more trusted, connected, and on-point news, follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.